Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be talking about this incident that happened in Akron, Ohio. I'm sure most of the people watching this video are aware of the incident that I'm referring to. It's the one that's on the screen right now. The way I'm going to cover this is, first we're going to talk about just the facts of the incident. Then we're going to watch the video. Then I'm going to give you my thoughts on what happened that day. I've seen a lot of people talking about it on the internet, and my perspective and my thoughts on it are actually a little bit different than what the majority of people out there are saying. That's what we're going to talk about today. So if you aren't familiar with the incident, I'm pulling everything off of Police Activity's YouTube channel. This is one of my favorite places to get this kind of information because they're very thorough. They always put like a news article in the description. Saves me a lot of time. So I appreciate Police Activity for everything that they do for the community with this kind of stuff. But the article that they copy and pasted into the description reads as such: Akron, Ohio, on Monday, April the 1st, 2024, at approximately 7:04 p.m., Communications Center received a call from a citizen who reported seeing a 15-year-old boy in the area of Newton Street and Tonawanda Avenue with a gun. According to the caller, the male pointed the gun at houses. At approximately 7:11 p.m., responding officers located the subject matching the caller's description, walking on Britton Road in Ottawa. The officer stopped in his marked police car to investigate. As the officer began to exit his patrol car, he quickly issued verbal commands to the male to show his hands. Seconds later, the officer discharged his firearm, striking the male in the hand. After observing the subject with what appeared to be a gun in his hand. Immediately following the shooting, the officers secured the crime scene, rendered emergency aid, which included applying a tourniquet to the male's arm. The subject was later transported to an area hospital where he underwent treatment for non-life-threatening injury. The officer was a 9-year veteran of the Akron Police Department and is currently on administrative leave. I think right now all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and splice the video in right here so you can see exactly what we're talking about. Then we'll be back.
Where are you coming from? Can I see your hands real quick? Oh shit!
Hey,
Shit!
Hey, it's fake! It's
Shots
fake.
fired! Shots fired!
It's fake! It's fake! It's fake! It's fake! It's fake!
Shots fired!
It's
Drop to
fake.
the ground! Drop to the ground!
It's fake.
Drop to the ground!
It's fake!
Drop to the ground!
fake.
Drop to the ground!
Alrighty, so there's the video. There's the incident. It happens extremely quick. So quick that if you're not paying attention, you might have missed it. And it happens so quick that I'm thinking about it, I might go ahead and play it back in slow motion during the initial replay for you, just so that you can have a better idea of what actually happened, because it happened so fast. An officer responded to a call about a person with a gun, found a person with a gun, gets out of his car, asks to see the person's hands. The person's hands have a firearm in it. He shoots that person. Is it a justified shooting? Legally speaking, sure it is. The kid immediately began screaming that it was a fake gun, and started talking about how basically you could tell him he was like crying and saying, that he wasn't apologizing per se, but I mean, you know what he was saying. It's a fake gun. This shouldn't happen. Whatever. The kid was pleading. I think pleading is the best way to do it. The gun that I have a picture of it on the ground right here. This is the fake gun that was in the kid's hand. Here it is on the ground. It surely looks like a real gun. It looks like a replica of a Tech 9. That's the best guess that I have for you. And that's basically all the information that we have. Now, when it comes to reacting to this shooting incident, I think the reaction of the internet is very similar to the reaction that I've seen from an awful lot of people. People saying, the kid shouldn't be playing with a toy gun that looks realistic. That's what the majority of people are saying. If you look at the comments on that video, you're seeing that. I've seen a couple of police commentators saying something very similar to that. And I have a slightly different stance. I realize that toy guns look like real guns. And if you point a toy gun at somebody, there's no way to know if it's a toy gun or a real gun. And sure, you're going to have to defend yourself in that situation. You have to assume that the gun that looks real is real. But at the same time, I grew up in an era where we played with toy guns all the time. We played with toy guns that looked realistic. Even today, there's still BB guns that look very realistic. I have several of them. You can buy them at the store today. A BB gun or a pellet gun that looks real. It doesn't have any kind of orange markings on it, anything like that. There's kids that can go outside and play with these BB guns and pellet guns and airsoft guns and stuff. It's not a crime to do that. And I don't think that we should necessarily be blaming the toy gun on this situation. While it's something that makes the shooting legally justified, it's not. I don't think that children that are out there playing with toy guns should have to fear being shot by a police officer. That's my take on it. My overarching thought when I watched this video is the fact that the officer pulled right up on somebody that has a gun. I don't have that particular part of the video pulled up, but I can. I'll put a screenshot back here behind me. The officer pulled right up on the guy, and he was put in a situation where he no longer had time, distance, cover, any opportunity to use any other force other than deadly force. And I have a serious problem with that. And the other thing is you have to think about where this occurred. This occurred in Akron, Ohio. Akron, Ohio is very close to Cleveland, Ohio, about a 30 to 40 minute drive directly east on the interstate. And Akron and Cleveland are actually so close together that if you're not from the area, if you're driving eastbound, I forget the route, is it 90 or something that's up there? If you're driving eastbound on one of the highways out there, you might get from the Cleveland metropolitan area into the Akron metropolitan area without even realizing that you're in a different city. The density of the buildings will definitely kind of get smaller. And then all of a sudden the density of the buildings get bigger. You can tell that you were leaving town and now you're in town, but it's so close that most people, especially if you're from a small town, small rural community, you would think that you were in the same town the entire time. Akron and Cleveland are very close together. What happened in Cleveland in recent memory that is similar to this? That is what I want to talk about today. And I want to talk about the Tamir Rice incident. Everybody should remember what happened to Tamir Rice. That was 10 years ago this November. Tamir Rice was a young boy. I forget how old he was, but he looks like he's 9 years old. Well, it's right there. He was 12 years old at the time of his death, or 11 years old. Tamir Rice was a little boy that was at a playground, and I can go ahead and, you know what? I should have pulled that up. I don't have it in front of me. I'll put something in behind me. He was a little boy playing with a BB gun at a city park. Somebody called in to 911, said that there is a kid with a gun at the park, and officers responded to this call of a person with a gun. They drove directly up to where Tamir Rice was. They exited the car. Again, they lost that time, distance barrier, opportunity to make other decisions, and they used deadly force. They killed Tamir Rice, and he was basically doing nothing wrong. He was playing with a BB gun in public, something that a lot of kids do. This caused an absolute firestorm across the country. Even the article that I pulled up here talks about race. It says that, he was killed for being black in public and all this other stuff. No, he was killed because the officers made poor tactical decisions. This happened 10 years ago, and this has been debated left, right, and center. Everybody knows and everybody acknowledges that those officers made a very poor tactical decision that put them in a place where they shot and killed somebody that didn't need to be shot and killed. They were cleared legally, but at the end of the day, this wasn't a necessary loss of life. And something that I talk about repeatedly on this channel, if you've been watching my videos for any point in time, is that we want to stop the unnecessary loss of life. Sometimes it's completely necessary. Sometimes there's no avoiding it. You're in a situation where you have to use force. You have to use force. I understand that. It is what it is. I don't like it when it's a situation where it could have been avoided and it wasn't. It doesn't mean that it's not legally justified, but it means that it shouldn't have happened. Tamir Rice is a shooting that shouldn't have happened. And this kid in Akron, whose name has not been released, this shouldn't have happened either. I don't know. That's really all I want to say about this is just and I guess there's two things. Sorry, I'm lost my train of thought for a second there. As an officer, when you're given a call like this, you have to remember a couple of things. And I do want you to remember the Tamir Rice and now this situation in Akron. When you're approaching calls like this, I can tell you that I absolutely do. And I respond to calls like this all of the time. Calls about kids out in front of a house with a firearm. I respond to those calls all the time. I responded to one of those calls just the other day. It wasn't a child, but it was a call about a man that was allegedly walking down the street with a shotgun. Excuse me. And the caller, who wanted to remain anonymous, also said that this guy had warrants. They had felony warrants. I can't remember what they were for, but they were like violent felony warrants. The caller gave a very good description of the person. I was able to look up his mugshot before I drove there. Myself and all of my buddies, we were right in a row, all driving there from the same place to the same location. The guy was wearing like a purple jacket, so he would have stood out. We're driving down the street. I was driving westbound on a very main thoroughfare towards the area where he was last seen. And as I started to get into the area, I looked over and I saw him. He was walking directly towards me. He was walking eastbound. I was driving westbound. I looked over at him. I saw the purple coat. He looked directly at me. He knew that, he had warrants, and he was very self-aware of his situation. He looked at me. He looked at my buddies. I got on the radio and I said, "Hey, did you guys see him? I think that was him right over there." Everybody said, yes, it was him. He went southbound on that street. So what we did is we went southbound on the next street, and we started trying to get into a place where we could stop, get out and observe him, and hopefully hold him at gunpoint from a distance, get him to, show us his hands, put anything down that he was carrying, all of that kind of stuff. We ended up, he ended up running, and, we found him a couple minutes later, but he didn't have a firearm on him. But the fact of the matter is, we made sure that we handled the situation tactfully so that we weren't just pulling up on a guy with a gun, and the slightest furtive movement that he makes, we're jumping out and we're shooting somebody that may or may not have actually been armed. A shooting that would have been legally justified, but not something that would have sat easily in my heart, if you know what I'm saying. And that was what's going through my head when I'm watching this video from Akron. Things that you have to consider is the 911 call, the 911 caller, and the way some of these people call 911. In my opinion, as time goes on, our 911 callers are losing credibility daily. I've responded to so many calls where people embellish their situation or make up stuff because they're terrified of the world around them, because all they do is sit in their house and watch the news, and they're absolutely terrified of everything that they see, and they exaggerate things. And they don't evaluate what's going on before they call police. You see this in the types of calls for service that we respond to. If you're in any kind of neighborhood Facebook group or block watch, you're also seeing this kind of stuff where people exaggerate the severity of the situation that's going on because they're fearful and they're panicked. The other thing is that, as an officer, if you end up shooting somebody in the line of duty, even if it's a completely justified shooting, like if I pull up on a scene and there's a gunman that's blasting off rounds at people and I have to discharge my weapon and I have to drop that threat, that's a traumatic incident for me. That's something that I will have to live with for the rest of my life. And it's something that I've got buddies. I've never shot anybody in the line of duty. I have a bunch of friends that have. Everybody handles it differently. I have a buddy who, he was in an officer involved shooting, and it couldn't have been more justified. It was a very violent person committing a very violent act. And he was emotionally affected dramatically from that situation. And still to this day, he's not the same person that he was prior to that that traumatic incident that occurred. Now imagine you're a police officer that, this kid lived, thank God. But imagine you're that police officer that pulls up on this 15-year-old kid. Was he acting smartly? No. Should he have been carrying the gun in that manner? No. But did he deserve to die? No. He didn't deserve to be shot either. It's just the circumstances and how they played out. But imagine that he had killed this kid. Imagine you kill a kid, a 15-year-old kid who is basically, he wasn't breaking the law. You're going to have to live with that for the rest of your life. I don't ever want to put myself in a position where I am going to kill somebody that wasn't breaking the law, that wasn't a danger to the public. I don't want to put myself in a situation where my perception of the situation distorts the reality of the situation. That is what this officer did by pulling immediately up to the suspect, jumping out of his car. He was giving himself no choice but to shoot the kid. I don't know. These kinds of incidents should really stand out in your mind. If you want to be a police officer or you are a police officer, keep these incidents in your head and don't do what these officers did. You don't need to ruin another family's life and ruin your own life at the same time, as well as your family's, because you made a tactical error. Those are going to be my thoughts on this particular shooting. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later.